Joining me now, ABC News contributor and managing partner at the Cochran firm, attorney Channa Lloyd, along with host and legal analyst of the Law and Crime Network, Terri Austin. So, Channa, what do you make so far of the prosecution's closing remarks?
So far, they've kept it very short and concise. They focused on the law, which was very important. They gave, one of the things that was very smart was they gave the voluntary intoxication charge, which is very important because he's admitted to this opioid use, which could factor into how the jury see that and whether or not they see that as a voluntary act or involuntary. So I thought that was very smart. They also highlighted in the murder charge that, any wrongful act leading towards these consequences is also something that is included in murder. And I thought that was very smart to highlight for the jury to clear up any misconceptions about what it is that they're looking for when they have all of this evidence and go into deliberations.
So, Terri, what are you waiting to hear from the defense?
I think the defense is going to have to show that, yes, Alex Murdaugh lied about these financial crimes, but this was a murder trial, and he's not going to lie about something so important to him. You saw how he had a great relationship with his family, that he loved his wife, Maggie, that he loved his son, Paul. Why would he ever do this? And the motive, I think they're going to have to attack. Why on earth would he simply kill his family just to get a delay? I do think, though, having said all that, that the prosecution has the better argument as far as that's concerned. But defense is going to have to really hone in on this would be a drastic way to delay any sort of trial, to delay any sort of hearing, and no one in their right mind would do something like that.
So, Channa, do you think the jury will be sequestered?
I believe so. This judge looks like he would like them to be very to the point. He's very by the book. It's the smartest way to get juries to really focus on their deliberations and not have them go home and discuss it with family members. Because let's remember, each and one of our juries is still an individual human with feelings and emotions. When they have all of this on their mind, they're going to look to turn to another person. So having them sequestered limits the ability to have that happen.
So, Terri, the jury did visit the crime scene. We talked about that this morning. It's quite the sprawling property. What type of rules did they have to follow? I understand they were pretty strict. And, which side do you think that a visit like this actually helps and or hurts?
It's interesting, Kira. I know the defense asked for that visit, but I probably, if I were defending this case, would not have done so. I think taking those jurors out there really does bring them close to the crime and makes them feel the gravity of the situation. The rules they had to follow were very strict, as you mentioned. They couldn't speak to each other, and no one could speak to them. They were just allowed to go view the kennel, and as I understand it, they also were allowed to just see the overall property. And I think logistically they tried to size up whether or not Alex Murdaugh could hear if a gunshot occurred at the kennel, if in fact he was at the house taking a nap. So they got a chance to do all of that. They got in the van, they got out, and they walked around. And my understanding, it was short and sweet, but to the point.
And Channa, it wasn't a surprise that they did this. It's a lot of times in high-profile trials like this, they do that, right?
Absolutely. Having the jury visit the scene of the crime puts it in context. Any questions or lingering thoughts that jurors may have about proximity, is it possible for him to have done this, gotten back to his car? If he was taking the nap, did he hear the shots? It gives them their own purview to be able to make that decision in their own minds. And I think that's very important for jurors because I think it puts it into real life context for them, and all of their thoughts, questions that they may be grappling with, they can actually put it in the framework of the actual location. So I think it's going to cut both ways. I think that their jurors went there with ideas about what they were interested in seeing, and they actually got to see it for themselves.
Do you think, Channa, that it could potentially in any way mislead the jury?
Absolutely, Kira. Let's remember this was in 2021. So what we're talking about is a significant difference in time. That was part of what the prosecution had to say. Trees have gotten a lot thicker. The property itself has changed. So one of the things that they're going to and should remind the jury when they got there or beforehand is how the property has changed. Because let's imagine if the property was very sparse, that gives you a very different feeling than if it's very dense and foresty. So one of the things about that sort of time lapse by the time we get to trial is that the actual environment can change the juror's perception of what could or could not have happened.
You know what I think is interesting too, Terri, and ironically enough, that the members of the jury were actually escorted there onto the property by the responding officers who testified for the prosecution. So this really does show you how small this community is, how intertwined the community is. And you can't help but think, wow, was there any sort of side conversations going on or looks or, you know, I mean, it really is quite intriguing to think that there was that type of moment.
Yeah, it was a small community. The fact that all of these officers know each other, and it does make you think about the influence that the Murdaugh family has over that complete town. In fact, they all knew him, and you have to wonder whether or not they did treat that scene differently. Were they giving him too much deference? Did they allow the family to come in too soon? Did they clear the area too soon? All of those questions, I think, are part and parcel of this case, and I'm not so sure it has come out as much as it should have come out. And these, professionals went to that scene, and it probably brought memories back to them as well. It's got to be hard to walk the grounds again with or without the jury there beside you and not feel the emotion that you must have felt on the night of that really tragic, horrible crime.
So, Channa, one more, if you don't mind. At various points in the trial, Murdaugh's attorney suggested that Maggie and Paul were killed by two shooters. Based on the evidence that you've heard, is this a possibility in any way?
I think it's a possibility. Let's not dispute facts. I think that when you talk about a murder scene with two different long rifles, when you talk about the distances that were carried, it is a distinct possibility. But let's always remember the KISS method. Keep it simple. You have to really look at this, look at where he was and the proximity. And typically jurors are going to go for the simplest method, because when it becomes too convoluted, you lose individuals. And so I think they're going to be looking at that. And one thing that I think that should have been highlighted a little bit more to these jurors, as Terri said, is the prominence factor. We saw it, the effect of it on the individuals that testified. The caregiver, the housekeeper, they liked him. They wanted to give him a certain deference. They were very hesitant in talking about the way he tried to influence their testimony. So when you take all of that into account, I think that what we're looking at is something that's going to be a little bit more weighted against with the state's case than with the defense theory.
Channa, Lloyd, Terri Austin, thank you so much, ladies.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.